Hello and welcome to our special first OYP live stream. I'm Tory Braun. I'm the community cultivator for the Okanagan Young Professionals Collective. Today we are here in downtown Kelowna, joining you from the Okanagan coLab. We are here on the traditional, unceded, and ancestral territory of the Syilx Okanagan people. And we hope you take a moment wherever you're joining us from today, or if you're watching the recording after, to just acknowledge the lands that you are currently on. So we have a fun panel here for you today, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about the Okanagan networking lifestyle, which is when we're off the beach and actually doing the hustle of networking so that we can lie on the beach later. So we have 4 special guests with us here today that I'll introduce you to in just a minute. For those of you that aren't familiar with OYP, we are a program of the Central Okanagan Economic Development Commission, and our goal is to build community and connect people to the opportunities that are here. So sometimes we host events, we like to be a bit of a resource hub and act as ambassadors for why this region is so great to live in. So we're talking with some people today who also would agree with me on why this region is so great to live in. So I do want to introduce you to our panel today. We have Bobby, Greta, Chris, and Jamie. And we've prepared some questions, and I always like to kick it off. We'll let you first introduce yourselves and what you do. And then I've got a couple extra intro questions for you as well. And before we do that, I do want to also mention my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I didn't grow up here, but I have been living here for the last 8 years, and you all know what my job is now. So over to you, Bobby.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bobby Bissessar, he, him, his pronouns, and the Director of Communications for the Kelowna Pride Society, and also the Director of Sales and Marketing at the Cove Lakeside Resort in West Kelowna. So it's an honor to be here with these fine folks this afternoon, and Tory, and representing OYP, just to talk about networking and what's good about the Okanagan.
Love it. I'm Greta Reed. I am the community catalyst for Okanagan coLab. I'm also an Indigenous artist and creator for Tangled Fireweed and Feathers, and I am also so excited to be here with everyone and talk about networking.
Perfect. My name is Chris Lewis. Pronouns are he, him, his, and I am the Director of Visitor Experience with Tourism Kelowna. I have lived in the Okanagan almost my whole life. I was born in the South Okanagan. I moved around a little bit, did all of my high school in the North Okanagan, and I've been in the Central Okanagan since about 2008. So I just say I'm from the Okanagan. And I'm also excited to be here because I think we can also network on the beach. I think that's okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially with some of the things that you do as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Great
Beach volleyball he is talking about. My name is Jamie Taverner. She, her, hers. I am the managing partner for Urban Rec Okanagan, which offers adults the opportunity to play social, recreational, co-ed sports. And I guess I'm also a lifer. If you're 2008, I moved here in '93 to Vernon, left for a short period of time, and into Kelowna in 2002. So I was here when Okanagan College was a university still.
And Greta, what about your story? You've been in and out of the Okanagan in your life too, so.
I'm actually Okanagan Nation, but I grew up and lived in the Northwest Territories in the Yukon most of my life. So most of my traditions are from what I call a Tangled Nation, inspiration for my business. But my family has kind of lived all over Canada, and now I find myself loving the Okanagan, loving Kelowna. And I've been in Kelowna for 6 years now, but in the Okanagan itself since 2012. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Mm-hmm. And Bobby, you also in and out of the Kelowna area, but not originally from here.
From here, no, I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. So this is technically my second time here back in the Okanagan. So I moved initially to Canada in 2011 to Victoria. So I went to school there, and then moved up to work at Sparkling Hill back in 2015 to spend about a year out at Lake Country, and yeah, moved back here in 2019. Worked at a number of hotels and resorts in Kelowna, and yeah, been here ever since.
Awesome.
So just going on 2 years.
Yay. Okay, so the next question. Now, this is how people really get to know all of you. If you could only eat one potato chip flavor for the rest of your life, what would you pick? Jamie, you ready?
Yeah. Well, I think it'll have to be a salty kettle chip. I'm thinking that goes really well with wine. So I think that's going to have
You're
to be
hoping there's also wine involved in this.
Oh yeah,
Rest of your
yeah.
life. Yeah.
It is
You get to pick one
it
wine.
is the Okanagan and goes with networking. So I'm
Perfect.
following a theme.
Yeah. Chris?
That is a very hard choice between original, sour cream and onion, and barbecue. But if I had to do one, I'd probably do just original. Yeah,
What brand?
Yeah.
probably Lay's. I think Lay's original. Yeah,
they're all
that's the
different.
bag that I'm picturing in my head.
Greta?
I struggle with this because I am a salty type person. So I'm a big fan of just like a classic tortilla chip, salsa, and dips. But I think my greatest regret in this world is that Doritos stopped making their Russian roulette. And
yes.
you cannot get it anymore. Or I have not been able to find it, and I have hunted for it. But it's like a combination of cheddar with secret spicy chips in the mix, and they all look the same, so you never know what you're gonna get.
Wow.
So I miss that. That game.
So Greta likes to live dangerously.
Yeah.
Bobby?
For me, I do like the new Lay's cheddar and sour cream one. However, if it's for the rest of your life, I'll probably go salt and black pepper because I love sauces and all the dips. So I think that's more versatile. So I can live with that. So I can have unlimited sauces. You didn't say any. There's no
Yeah,
restriction on
no,
the
I
sauce.
did not resist this. Yeah, good strategy.
Yeah, right. Strategic.
I was debating this too, and I was like, do you just go with an all dress because it's like all of them, but then it's almost too strong for the rest of your life. So I was like, would I be allowed munchie mix? Because then you can, but I feel like that shouldn't be allowed. So shouldn't be allowed. So I think I would actually, I love sour cream and onion and Cool Ranch Doritos, but I think I'd end up doing the Lay's, the plain Lay's.
Yeah.
Again, now that I know that I can dip it in sauce.
Yes, exactly. Even better choice.
Unlimited sauces.
You need ripple so it gets the dip in.
Oh, the ripple. I'm
Yeah.
a ripple fan. Yeah.
It doesn't melt as fast. It's a stronger, sturdier chip too.
Agree.
Yeah, we need to just have a panel about potato chips.
Yeah.
Yes.
Give the people what they want to hear.
That's a good networking question.
Great. Yes, we will
good
get
opener.
into like your opening lines. So we're here to talk about networking, and let's start with like the word networking because I think it means something a little bit different to everyone. So when you hear it, what do you think of? Because there's personal networking, professional networking. I mean, some people get like a very much a visual in their head of like people in suits shaking hands or not shaking hands anymore. So what is networking to you?
So yeah, in a nutshell, I would say networking would be just building or creating a meaningful connection with someone. And it's usually built on some common thread or common ground, like your love for potato chips, for example. And that in the long term would open the door for multi-tiered layers of collaboration in many different ways, is what I would
Chip
say.
eating together.
Yes, exactly. And wine drinking. You know.
We could share all of our flavors.
Yes.
Yeah.
In one bag.
Greta.
I struggle with this because I feel like I network like very casually interacting with people in coffee shops and then going to like actual events. So I'm that person that comes up and asks people to go for adult dates, like go for coffee, meet each other and connect. So I feel like networking is, that kind of meaningful conversation and deep diving into what someone's doing, what they're passionate about. Yeah, so a little bit of both, I guess.
Chris.
When you say the word networking, I think the first thing that comes to my head is networking events. But I do know that that is not the only type of networking that there is. Yeah, I picture kind of just people standing around cocktail tables and the awkward feeling of like having to infiltrate one of those little circles and try and start a conversation with people there. But my favorite type of networking is the same. Coffee dates are the best. And for me, working in downtown makes that very easy to do because there are so many different places, really all over the Okanagan. But I think whether it's running into someone in your place of work or in a coffee shop or at an official event or whatever, just building any type of relationship with someone to me is what networking is all about.
Jamie.
I think networking has really changed for me since I was a student because I moved around a lot when I was younger. So meeting people has never been scary. So it was kind of fun to go out to downtown after fives or join up with the JCs and just to like freak people out that did find it was awkward and just walk up and start a conversation. Because you quickly realize that there's always something you have in common with somebody. And not everyone recognizes that themselves. So it was always fun to meet with people. And now networking for me as a professional is about creating win-wins, even if it's not about the person that you're talking to. So when I see a network, I see a person, but with all these different fingers and arms of other people that they lead you to, kind of like in Facebook or in Instagram where you have similar people. I could, have a conversation with you and we want nothing to do with each other, but there's someone that has something that they need to do. So for me, it's not always about just the person, it's about being authentic about what the win is between your collaborative groups, if that makes sense. No.
Awesome. And would you say, if you think about like personal or professional networking, are you more of a personal networker or more of a professional one, or is there no line for you? Jamie?
There's no line. There are zero lines. Well, it's the personal that leads you to the professional.
Yeah.
Right? So I have 2 children that are still in elementary school and middle school, and that is an icebreaker in itself with someone that has children or doesn't have children. Networking at school can lead to professional relationships. The Okanagan as a whole is interesting because you never know who you're talking to. You don't know if that person, you're just like, oh my goodness, is a millionaire, runs a great business, has things, and it's a city that has to run without judgment because we all have a win for each other if you look at it in a way. So I think that there can't be a line to be a good networker.
Yeah, totally agree. I was at a birthday party last night, met someone there whose office is literally down the hall from my office, and we've never met. And then she might be on a future OYP panel, so you never know.
You never
Go
know.
to lots of birthday parties, right? What about you, Chris? Personal, professional?
I would say I definitely focus on the personal side of it, which I think, as Jamie said, leads into the professional because the personal side of networking is how you build that connection or find the connection and build a relationship with someone. Everyone goes into networking usually with some sort of goal or something. They're all dressed up and going to an event or going out for coffee or whatever for a reason. So talking about what those are, and I agree, I also like to try and find something that usually benefits both sides as well. But to me, it's definitely a focusing on the personal side, which leads into professional.
Greta?
I love them both. I do like the personal aspect of networking and getting to know someone and finding those friction points for the people you're meeting so that you can introduce them to future opportunities. But there's that facet of professional. I do enjoy going to the downtown after 5 or events like this where you're like, you never know who you're going to meet and what opportunity is going to come out of it. But it's a bit of both for me. I think more I lean towards the personal side because that's just my personality.
Yeah, well, I tend to define them in terms of more social versus business. So like the others, I think on the social side is kind of where you kind of get your feet wet and your skills in terms of talking impromptu about random things. So just your openness to go up to different groups of people and talk. So I think, that's kind of where that's developed on the social side. But for me, through work and career so far, it's been heavily on the business side. But it's in those moments of discomfort is where you lean on what you would do in a social setting. So it's kind of blurred in that way. And I think they definitely do feed into each other as well.
Do you think there's a difference between I'm an entrepreneur, so my professional is my personal,
Yes.
versus you work for a company, right? So depending on who you're networking for,
Yes.
I'm always networking for me, who is also Urban Rec. Like
'Cause you're
we're one
a
and the
brand,
same.
right?
I'm
So
a
that-
brand,
yes,
right?
you're the
So
walking
it's one
brand.
and the same, and maybe that's why it's a little bit different. That's based on trust of me versus of the brand.
Yes, yes, no, exactly, 100% too. But yeah, there's definitely similarities there because you lean into the comfort of the social element as well.
And I think you go through different like phases in your life too, depending where you're at. And I mean, I'm someone who's had multiple jobs since moving to the Okanagan in 2012. And so in some of those jobs, I felt like I need to network more, like on the business side, versus like the social side just kind of organically happens. And then I was like, oh, you actually build networks even faster just on the, when you're not even thinking that you're doing that, right? But yeah, it depends on your goal too, because I think one of you mentioned like some people go in very much with like a goal of like, you know, if you are, I'm looking for new clients and I'm looking for new leads. But I think a lot of us, just the type of people who are like, we just want to meet new people that are interesting too, right?
Yeah.
So
And one of the things you talked about earlier was just how close in terms of degrees of separation people are.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why social is important here in the Okanagan. It's because in a social setting, chances are a large percentage of those people will be at your business networking events. So if you do put effort into that area, it'll pay dividends on the business side too, because it's the same people.
totally, I agree. It's like definitely exponential, and once you start putting in the effort of like how it grows, yeah.
Especially before Facebook.
What was
Different
that?
back
Yes,
then.
yes.
It was a
I
thing
can't
back
even
then.
remember that.
Oh, I remember. It's much more challenging and fun.
So where is your go-to to meet people? And let's start with socially, on the social personal side. Like if you're looking, if you moved here, and actually Bobby will pick on you because you are the one that moved here most recently. If you want to go and make friends, what do you do? Where do you find people here?
Well, that's a hard question, but I'll say like, you know, like in terms of close networks, it's typically people I've made friends with through my business contacts. So that's why I'll flip the script and it's the reverse for me. I actually have turned business contacts and friends to actually personal friends and former clients, even like in Vancouver, right? So you kind of build those networks there and you take that outside and then you explore like places to eat, places to drink. I know pre-COVID, Cactus Club was a pretty hot spot, and I was never one to sit at a bar. But I must say, in the like year leading up to COVID, yeah, I would only want to sit at the bar, even what's for dinner or just a couple drinks. I found it just more relaxed, more laid back, easy to converse. People, and I did notice, like when you're sitting at a table, it's kind of a little more difficult to talk across tables, especially if you don't know people. But if you're sitting at the bar, there are other people like you sitting at the bar, so that's what I've realized. So yeah, I would say Cactus was a pretty decent hotspot. I don't know, patios everywhere in the summer. Craft would be a popular one.
Horrible lifestyle.
Yes, I know. I know.
There's too many amazing patios and drinks. Awesome. That's an interesting one. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of flipping the script, turning business into social.
Yeah. What about you, Greta?
I love going to events. I find you never know who you're going to meet. So one, you get to support someone who's hosting the event and what they're trying to do for their own business. And then the second part is you get to connect with other people that clearly are interested in whatever event you're at. And on Friday we were at the Abstinery with rebellious unicorns. And I had a conversation with someone and I complimented her dress because it looked beautiful on her. And we've only, of course everyone's masked, but we'd only met virtually and I did not recognize her. And then when we did the official introduction to each other, she was like, "Oh yes, Greta, you're one of few that I've connected to." And and then we had, I guess, discovered that we'd already known each other just through screens over COVID. So that was cool to meet her again in person. So I love that kind of stuff. Yeah, going out and having fun.
I would agree with, I think, everything said so far. Is usually for me, it's over some sort of food and drink. Food to people becomes more of a commitment. So usually it's a drink that can be quick, like a coffee or something like that. even thinking of some of the conferences that I've traveled to before, like some of the best information and discussion that I've had has been at the bar in the hotel after the sessions are over, and just stopping for a drink, and it's like, hey, I recognize you from the session earlier. Even how we started the session today, we were talking about food, and we all got pretty passionate about it. Right? it's everyone has to eat and drink, so to me, that sharing that with someone is a real nice way to start a relationship, whether it's professional or personal. Absolutely.
I will say, unlike Bobby, when I go out to Cactus or Craft, which is once or twice a year, when I get away from the kids, I'm very selfish. So that is no longer the places that I socialize. I go into a little bubble and I'm in my place. I have found like meeting new people has become a bit more purposeful. So going to a birthday party with Tory, where it is more of a social environment that's about meeting people that relate to the people that you already know. So making those like further connections, or honestly just someone interesting on a social media network and reaching out and be like, that's a cool picture, or what do you have there? That happens sometimes as well. Or the grocery store, like when people used to talk about picking people up in the meat department, I've done it. Especially through COVID, when you don't see people. I have struck up conversations over chicken fingers with other moms, and really made connections and friendships that do lead to the coffees and stuff. But people just want to talk, and it's finding them in a place where they're vulnerable.
Chicken fingers.
Chicken fingers, or pack meetings with the kids. Like it's funny how your world changes, where it used to be the bar and dodgeball chick across my shirt, right? And you'd be amazed at who comes up to you then. But now it's more purposeful when there's a desire to chat with new people, for me.
So this brings up an interesting point, because sometimes you hear the Okanagan get labeled as being cliquey. And in my personal experience, I've not felt that way, but I know other people have had experiences where they felt that. But you are talking to people and they're pretty receptive. I mean, Bobby, if you're sitting at bars, I'm assuming people are responding to you when you're talking to them. So like, do you find that people are pretty open to conversations, or do you ever find it cliquey here at all?
Yeah, no, definitely. I've definitely heard that, and I've experienced that to some extent. But what I did notice is an easier way to get past that is you have to make a little bit of effort and put yourself out there. So that's something I hadn't really been good at, or hadn't put a lot of effort in. Like Jamie, unlike Jamie, I'm super shy. So you would rarely find me striking up conversations at the grocery store unless somebody's like literally bumping into me.
Yeah, it's like, what if right?
Unless it's Jamie. But so one thing I find really good for you getting past that into building a common ground, because sometimes you don't know and you're a bit shy, you can't really probe. So volunteering at social events. So it could be with organizations like United Way or Tourism Kelowna, the food bank. There's a lot of social volunteer opportunities here in the Okanagan, and then because you're all there for the same purpose, so regardless of your background, you're already there for that one common purpose. So like, oh, how are you doing today? And we talk about the task at hand, and then in doing so, you get deeper and you find out about people, who they really are, what their interests are, and you can go from there. But so once I started doing that, I didn't really find the cliquiness, and yes, people were responsive, because a lot of times these people are there to volunteer, yes, for that cause, but also for the same reason, to get that introduction just to some new faces as well.
Yeah, and volunteering is a great way. I know for myself, when I first moved back here in 2012, I couldn't find a job that I wanted. And so I started volunteering where I wanted to work, of course. Sneaky me, trying to, it worked.
Well, that's strategic, right?
There's Tory out serving at Cactus Club.
She's behind the bar again.
Yeah. Just keep serving Bobby. Really accosted in the meat department. So I started volunteering, actually at the museum, because I loved the museum and I just wanted to be at the museum. And then I met a bunch of people there that I'm still in contact with, but in various different ways. But I think a lot of us also currently volunteer. I know I've sat on several different boards or been involved with events and stuff like that. So what are some things that, Kelowna Pride for Bobby.
Hashtag OYP, hashtag Kelowna Pride, hashtag Tourism Kelowna, Urban Rec,
we're gonna
coLab.
Yeah.
So there's, I mean, just in these organizations alone, there are multiple opportunities as well. I mean, Kelowna Pride Society, you know, lots of different social humanitarian aspects to it. There's also the business side, you know, like organizations like United Way, for example, they fundraise across the board for multiple different causes, and there's a lot of links and connections to be had through them as well. I mean, the OYP, like I'm fairly new to the OYP, you know. It's an organization I've heard about a lot, and I got referred by Dustin from Rebellious Unicorns to OYP. So even in that was a connection as well. My affiliation with Kelowna Pride and Rebellious Unicorns kind of led me to OYP. So just kind of letting that free flow happen sometimes.
And we're gonna play this separation game. Met Dustin at a art gallery event because I volunteered for the art gallery, and I met a friend of mine introduced me to him, and I had met her at an OYP event when I first moved here. So it's all like, and now Dustin and I work together. He's behind the camera helping us out. So also follow at Unicorns Live, at Rebellious Unicorns.
Hashtag Rebellious Unicorns.
We're gonna just provide you with like, we need to scroll through a list of everyone's Instagram accounts at the end. What about everyone else? Like, well, I know Chris.
I could comment on like the perception that cliques could exist. And I would say events are a very good way to mediate that, in that if you go to something that is more niche or specialized, like everyone there has that common thread immediately because you're there. For example, if it's like an SPCA fundraiser event or something like that, like everyone there probably loves animals. So if you talk about
what kind of pets?
Yes, do you like cats or dogs?
Yeah.
Or both, you know?
Or are you a pet person?
Yes, exactly. And so that is a little bit easier, whereas like some of the really large events, it makes it a lot harder. Like I was talking about going up to a cocktail table and like breaking in on a conversation, and all of a sudden you realize I'm standing beside 6 accountants and I know nothing about accounting or whatever it might be. Those become a little bit more difficult because as the room is networking, they start to form
divide
these
up.
little bubbles
Pods,
of people that have those things in common. And if you keep moving around the room, you will find a place where you belong. But to me, the smaller events are definitely where it's at because you're all there for some sort of reason. And you can break those cliques apart and insert yourself wherever you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree. Kelowna, I think every city is cliquey if you're not in the clique. And so until you find your own clique, you'll find a place cliquey, but once you're in your own clique, you don't think things are cliquey. So it's funny. And all people, so when it comes to, say, volleyball in the Okanagan, a lot of people moved here, they don't know people, but how do you get on a team if you don't know anyone? It's so cliquey. Well, it's not cliquey. They just all play volleyball. How do you get into it? And it's volunteering, right? So with Urban Rec, we have people that volunteer and end up playing 4 hours a night because people know they want to play volleyball, not because it's not cliquey. But I think it's just understanding, coming back to everyone has something in common. You know an accountant, which is what you have in common with the accountants. Accountants play dodgeball.
I need an accountant as
And
well.
you need,
I know an accountant.
there's the win-win, right? There's your win-win. But I think that cliques are a really easy label to put onto things when you don't know how to enter into a group you want to see. And it's understanding that there's people within that group, if you're interested in it, that have things in common with you, but they might just be as shy as you are, and that's why it seems cliquey. It's just having the wherewithal to know how to get into it by volunteering, or pack moms are really cliquey if you're a mom, but they're just moms. They all have the same problems you do. It's just having the desire to break into that group by putting a little effort in.
Greta, any thoughts on?
So I actually just had this conversation with someone who is new to the Okanagan, and they were feeling like it was very cliquey here, and I like reassured them that it's like, go to those places, volunteer, because that is where you meet people. And the SPCA and Tourism Kelowna, all of these, like the lists of opportunities in the Okanagan themselves to help nonprofits or meet new people is just the best.
And if you have a passion, there is going to be a group that is passionate about the same thing, that is looking for volunteers.
And then often you meet someone at these events and they know a whole other group of people, and the domino effect can just happen so seamlessly through volunteerism. So I love advocating for the nonprofits, of course. Coming from the Rotary Center for the Arts, which is a great place to meet people, artists, and a dynamic community of individuals, from performers to Dustin. That's how I met Dustin, was through the RCA. But yeah, I think it's just opening that right door and, again, leading with some really good questions. Be curious, because you can break down that clique really quickly by being curious on what other people are doing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it is like the effort you put in, if you're curious about it. I know my first couple of years here, even though I was going out to things and starting to meet people, they weren't like my people. And like it was lonely and frustrating at times, right? But then eventually you find the right group and your people are here, and then you're like, yay, finally, right? So I just say, like, it does sometimes take a little bit of time to like build the right networks too, where you like feel that kind of like magic with them, and then things will unfold from there.
It's like you're dating.
It is, yeah. It totally is. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about specific networking events here. Does anyone have any favorites? There's lots of different ways to network. So there's events that are put on by like the Downtown Kelowna Association. We talk about that one a lot. I know Uptown Rutland does them. The Chambers, like, which is Kelowna, Peachland, Board of Trade in West Kelowna, and Lake Country Chamber do business after hour events. There's young professional membership-based groups that have things. What are some of your favorites? We'll start at the end with Jamie.
I think memorable for me, I don't head out to a lot of like networking events, things like Motion Ball, where there's a lot of young professionals together, and it's an event but turns into also networking with like-minded. But the coffee chats, the coffee socials that OYP puts on, that could have anyone on it, that are generally young professionals or somewhere around there that, have a little bit of time, we're all there for the same type of thing. I think I found those to be a lot of fun and authentic. And for me, it's always about authentic events where people can show up in jogging pants or be whoever they need to be and have a cup of coffee and have that in common, and then move on with their work day. So I like the efficiency of the coffee socials the OYP puts on for sure.
What about you, Chris?
I would say one of the ones that I attend the most frequently is probably the OYP coffee socials, for sure.
Do we need to disclose? You guys are members of Influence, and so is Bobby, so anything they say about OYP, I may have paid them to do.
It's been 10 years. There's a love.
Yeah.
There's a love.
Yeah. Those ones are easy too, because you're there drinking coffee, and the way to start the conversation, what are you drinking this morning?
Yeah.
I do really enjoy going to the larger events as well, because it gets me outside of the network of people that I see the most often, and might make a new friend at that table of accountants or whatever it might be. And I do try to attend events in other communities as well. Like, I lived in Lake Country for a long time, so I was trying to attend events there because I was working in Kelowna during the day, and different things like that. So, hi.
I think we should acknowledge that
That's
we are currently networking. This is Chaz, everyone.
He's networking.
He heard Chris talking about the SPCA fundraiser.
He did.
And he had to come over. And
He's
say
here to
hi.
plug that for us.
Yeah.
But events for sure. And then I also like, though, going to more specialized things where if there's a conference or something about, whether for me it's tourism or even visitor services specifically, I like going and talking for hours about things, common problems that we have, or innovative solutions and things like that. So I like kind of both sides.
Cool. Greta, would you, maybe some coLab events, maybe?
Well, I don't feel like we haven't put on any like major networking events lately, but there are some fun stuff coming for 2022. But I have enjoyed the Downtown After 5. Pre-COVID, obviously, it was still alive and well, because there's something about, you get your tickets when you come in the door, and sometimes they have wine and cheese, and although we joked about it being heavy real estate agency, it's a good place to go. No real estate agents here.
It's purposeful.
It's very
At
purposeful.
the Downtown After 5.
If you're looking for a realtor and you want to buy,
You're in.
Downtown After 5.
They can.
they will be fighting for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it turns into a whole other event, and they pull out the mud bin and everyone just wrestles for your business. That doesn't actually happen, but yeah, maybe future events. But I have had some great conversations out of the downtown after 5, and definitely when I bought my franchise, that was where I went and picked up a bunch of business cards and made friends with businesses.
You know what that just reminded me of? Is Meet Me on Bernard in the summer.
Yes.
There was so many people when it became like a pedestrian area. I would be walking down the street. I could not go anywhere without seeing someone that you know, right?
Yeah.
And it's different events like that where you don't expect it is, I think, sometimes where the most magic happens in terms of networking, because it's like, hey, I haven't seen you in 6 months. Let's grab a coffee right now, you know? And then those are where the really authentic conversations start. So.
But I guess we're lucky because we already have networks.
That is true.
Right?
That
So
is
for
true.
someone that
That
doesn't
don't.
have a network, volunteering is good. The downtown after 5 is a good place because all those people are there for that purpose if you don't already have a network. And I think that's where you find the flip of where you go and how you network in these social environments. If you already don't know anyone, you're just walking lonely with your hands in your pocket down Bernard. But Chris is just very
If anyone
Poppins,
sees me,
right?
you can say hi.
Feel free to stop.
But it's finding those initial connections that can be so challenging
Yeah,
as, you know, a university student just coming out. But the university has so many opportunities to network in itself, right? So as a student, I only wish we had those opportunities when I graduated.
Yeah.
There wasn't as forthcoming and helpful as it is now.
Yeah. What about you, Bobby? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the cadence and frequency pre-COVID of the business after hours from a business standpoint, because you kind of similar, you can almost figure out who you're going to see. So it's nice to have that monthly check-in, see who's new at certain companies, although it might be sometimes the same people, but they'll bring the new colleague who's just recently joined the organization. It's a great place to connect and touch base from a business standpoint. But I must say my favorite on the personal side would be the more social galas, like for example, like Sugar Plum Ball, by Kelowna Pride, absolute favorite. And also I did Swinging with the Stars by COHA, Central Okanagan Hospice Association.
Cool.
The last one was in 2019, Swinging with the Stars. So events like that, you get an excuse to like dress up, have a couple extra bottles of wine with your friends slash industry colleagues, and that's where you really see the hybrid, right? Like you get to hang out with your friends, but also you see the industry people there. So it's those types of big galas are once a year, and you just touch base and you get to have a little bit of fun while, keeping it a little bit business too.
Yeah. And we'll post a list of a bunch of the different events that exist and all that on the OYP website. I would say some of my favorite, obviously the OYP Coffee Social. I know I have to say that because it's my job, but also before it was my job, I loved them. I just and I love like the energy in like a room of like a downtown after 5 and stuff like that. But it's the authenticity and just like, it's just small. It's just so casual, like come as you are, like, and they just end up being so fun. You just meet really like great and interesting people. There's a ton of other like events that happen.
There's one mixed by Rebellious.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you mic'd, Dustin? Can you do no? Okay, the mix.
Yeah, so Rebellious Unicorns, LGBT-owned organization. They have this mixed networking event, and it's not just for gay people.
Yeah.
It's like more for young business professionals. So you kind of would see some people who come to the OIP event probably attending, and I met some. That was back when I just moved here back in 2019. I went to a few of the events, 3 or 4, and I met some really awesome contacts across industries.
And it moves around to different venues as well,
Yeah.
right?
Which is
They did a
cool.
chocolate shop one time.
Oh.
These are the other
Dangerous.
things. Like
chip
don't just go to
factory.
network. Like get your chocolate or like
Yeah.
where like
Yeah.
check out all these cool locations. Like
Well, the
things that different.
experiences, right? Like,
Yeah.
They're centered around experiences of that business, which was pretty cool about
Like
that.
Sandhill used to have something that was really
Yeah.
cool that they would do on Fridays after, I think it was 4 or 5 o'clock. It was a great place to go to those. It's always fun. Same
Yeah.
with individual teams with Urban Rec.
Yes.
How many people have met their spouses? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, is that?
Oh, really?
Like
Yeah.
a match
Oh,
meetup.
that's the place.
Is this what I've been missing?
Yes, multi-sports.
Well, that brings us
Wednesdays.
kind of to the non-traditional networking. So
Yeah.
I always say like there's the things we think of like in the box. There's things that are kind of like outside. Like so, for example, like here at coLab, since May I've been part of. It's like a goal-setting group called Cotivation. And yes, there's people in it that I know, but I've also met a bunch of people that I don't know. And you actually get to know each other quite intimately because you're actually talking about like your goals as a human and seeing that progress for like 8 weeks with someone else. So it gives you an entirely different perspective. And I've met a bunch of people in the space through that, which was really cool. And then you go like even more outside the box, like Urban Rec, or Chris, I know you're a climber. I don't know if you meet people in like the rock climbing community. Yeah. But do you have favorite places to meet people in a non-traditional way? Jamie, you just want to shamelessly plug Urban Rec for a few minutes.
Well, it's become traditional though.
Yeah. I'll tell my Urban Rec story. Okay, so I moved back to Kelowna in 2012, and we joined OYP. Put on like it was kind of like a singles team, and they'd partnered with Urban Rec, and they ended up having I think 3 teams or something. Like there was so many people. So we got put on this team of 12 people that we didn't know. We got named Sweet Sassy, great name, and.
Co-ed or?
Yeah, so it's co-ed, multi-sport. So you play a different sport every week. And anyways, long story short, like those 12 people, 10 of them are still in my life, but in very different ways. And the team still exists, but I think my husband and I are the only OGs on it. Yeah, but one of these people is like, yeah, one of these people is my chiropractor now. Like 2 of them became like really close friends during COVID. Like one works at UBCO. She's on the OYP Members of Influence as well. But it's just funny how like people circle in and out of your lives because it is such a small community. But that was like a really great way to like meet people initially. And even in the current cohort that I'm in, season, Eva at the COEDC, I play against who I report to at work. And then at the coffee social, another guy that I'd met through an OYP meeting, I actually met him on the volleyball court. I was like, we had a virtual coffee, didn't we? And then the 3 of us were all like, we all play each other. Like, which was your team? Like, did we lose to you by like 30 points at volleyball? Ooh. But it's a good way to like meet people too in like a totally casual setting. So I think all the recreational stuff or like anything hobby based, right?
Because you have that similar base interest. No matter what you do for a living or what your schooling is or what it is, you all just like recreational sport or climbing or swimming or laying on the beach, not doing any of that, right? Watching people be active.
Yes.
Hobbies are the best way to meet people, I think.
I think any type of activity or recreation, because when you see someone that you know, all of a sudden now that's 2 things that you have in common, right?
Yeah.
And so it becomes even easier to start up a conversation and begin talking. I also was just going to say, living in the Okanagan, I know a few people who have boats. Those are good people to know.
Tell us about your
exactly. And you will meet a lot of people by going out on their boat or whatever, or hanging out at the beach or whatever it might be. But
we'd all rather be on a boat.
Any type of like activity, like whether it's going to a cultural event or something where we were talking about volunteering before, almost like it was meant to be a networking thing, but that also is non-traditional networking, right? There's so much, just I think being involved or enjoying your community in some way is a great way to meet people.
What about Facebook groups?
Facebook groups,
right? The interest and the gardening groups and the community groups and Glenmore groups and mission groups and finding people with the same passions as you, because some people can't get to the networking events or afford to get to the networking events, but there's some real, social media can be used for good versus evil. Like it really can be.
There's literally a group for every neighborhood in central Okanagan.
There's now neighborhoods. It's a thing.
And neighborhoods is a thing. I've met people on my road.
I'm like, what?
And I mean, it's odd as it sounds, you can look up interests in Facebook and I'm assuming Instagram. I'm old. I'm old, I'm not very good at it. But at Facebook, which is my baby, you can find people with similar interests and look up volleyball and play volleyball in the Okanagan, which is a group, and find teams looking for subs and interject yourself into the community. Or gardening, looking for tips and finding people in your neighborhood that garden and meet people that then turn into professional connections. There's a lot of different ways if you wrap your head around it, what you like to do personally and being authentic with that. you're going to find other people.
Yeah, there's a great group on Facebook. It's a Kelowna social group, and I saw they're meeting like once a week, and there's a bunch of people that do crafts at Twice the Dice Board Game Cafe, and every Saturday they're going for a hike. But it's a lot of like, most of what it is they're like, does anyone like hiking and want to do this? Or to like very, very specific hobbies of like, and someone else will be like, yes, because there's thousands of people in there. So that's always like a good place to find people as well. So.
Mama is one of the evacuees was trying to find out if anyone else smoked marijuana, so she had someone to smoke with because she's not from Kelowna. Like, honestly,
That's also a lot of the Kelowna social Facebook group is that exactly. It's like
she put herself out there and got a ton of responses from other moms that
works.
wanted to meet up at the local motel, right? Like, well done. You found yourself some friends in Kelowna while you're here from Merritt. It was just, I stopped and looked, went, good for you.
Yeah.
Like, good for you.
That's the right effort.
That is effort.
Yeah.
Just put yourself right out there.
Put yourself out
Yeah, there's also lots of groups you can join too. So I mentioned there's the young professional groups. There's some community focused like JCI and Gen Next and Rotaract. But there's also industry based ones. So like if you're in kind of the construction industry, there's an under 40 group for that. Like there's under 40 groups for so many things. And then the broader, there's actual like business networking groups too. There's like Kelowna Women in Business. There's like tons of things. So lots of options.
Kelowna Newcomers Club is a good
yeah.
one. You can be here for I think up to 3 or 4 years after moving. There's another group, I don't know the name of it, but they just literally go on walks and hikes together. And it's amazing, like having a volunteer program at Tourism Kelowna. We will have one of our volunteers, for example, who's involved in like the Newcomers Club or something. All of a sudden, we have 7 more people come from the Newcomers Club that come to volunteer as well because they find out they have these similar interests and start doing more and more together. So, yeah, we've made a new friend here.
On meetup.com too that are local.
Yeah.
Like my tea enthusiast group. It's on
Oh, are you a
meetup.com.
meetup?
Yeah, I'm on meetup.
Oh, wow.
What
Gotta find you a meetup.
Yeah, come. Do you want to come? This is literally a group of people that just like to drink tea together.
Oh, nice.
And we met virtually all last winter too. That's how dedicated we were to just drinking tea. And we met a bunch of cool people too. And people that I don't, like to Chris's earlier point, that wouldn't normally be in like my circle, like, you know.
In your clique.
In my clique.
Your sassy clique.
Okay, let's quickly dive into when you're at a networking event, what's your opening / pickup line? Like, how do you get into that table? What do you do?
What do you, that is the
Or
question.
do you like
What
give
do you
yourself
do?
a pep talk before?
Can you give a scenario?
Okay,
Because that might be
I'll give you
easier.
a specific
A
one from
specific
my
scenario.
life. Downtown after 5, Kelowna Yacht Club.
Oh, I've been to
The
that.
room is packed.
Legitimately, a question I do ask a lot is, what do you do? And then
Yeah.
that's when you
What
find
do you
out
do?
what all the people, and that also helps you understand perhaps why that person is there. If
Yeah.
they're a student, they're probably looking for volunteer or job opportunities once they're graduated. Don't assume, but you know, they might be. Also, do you like cats or dogs? Honestly,
Yeah,
is
it is.
one.
I've been at events and I'm
Yes.
like, do you have a dog? And then it just like the tone of the conversation is
Changes.
like, oh my God,
Their
you're
body
a
language
person
changes,
too?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or what are you drinking is another
Yeah.
one that I talked about before. If you're new to the area, like what has been your favorite thing so far? There's lots of different. What are you passionate about? That one really makes people think.
Yeah.
That's really deep.
It is.
That's a deep one.
For me, it's super shy. So like, if it's just walking up to that table, to me, it's about the eye contact and a smile. Like, because you're just walking into the room, you don't know. Well, the first thing you do is scan, right? Like, who do I know? And you like put like red dots on top of their heads, so you kind
What
of.
if there's no one that you know?
Right. So, well, that's the thing. So it's like automatically, you know, you put your jacket up, you get yourself situated. Then you kind of look around the room, and somebody's gonna make eye contact. So I found myself the first couple times that you like, if you think somebody's looking your way, you kind of casually look the other. But then you can, but you
Not that I don't want you.
But it's just because I'm introverted extrovert that way, right? So it's not comfortable the minute you walk into a room. So the reality is, you kind of slowly coerce yourself. No, I'm gonna look the person in the eye and smile maybe, and then they kind of just like, oh, how are you doing today? And it might just be that. And then I get on to some of the questions that Chris has asked. You know, like, why are you here, or what company are you with, or just to establish that thread, that one common thread. And sometimes you might not have to, because that person the first question might come from them too. So then that really gets your guard down.
Yeah.
When you just smile, not acknowledge the person that's looking at you, because chances are when you're scanning the room, a couple people will be looking at you.
Yeah, it's funny. We always like make it a bigger deal than it is, like on both sides too, right? When like people are scanning and then you're like,
Everybody scans, right?
And see, and I'm like, oh, they got my eye. You're in trouble now, Bobby.
Well, locked on.
We're blocked.
I always try to. I do like going if I can have like a friend or two to go with or like drag with me, but I do find I'm someone who is very comfortable networking and like meeting people, but I do find I have to like get myself sometimes like in the amped up, do a little like pep talk in the mirror. Okay, you got, and then set a goal and be like, all right, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna talk to 3 people. If it sucks and it's a total failure, then you can go home, Tory, and you can like crawl into your pajamas and pick whatever show you want to watch and order skip the dishes, like whatever you want to do. But you just need to go talk to 3 people. And then am I always like there after they're shutting down, because that's what happens, right? Because so I always think like having like a personal like goal for yourself if you need to like overcome that challenge. Like Jamie obviously doesn't need this for her when she goes in.
I mean,
Grocery
I
shopping,
think
yeah.
I don't usually have something to talk about when I go in, and I generally don't care what people's passions are when I meet them right off the bat. But,
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah.
that is how I network, though, is because if I don't care, I won't ask. And that's, but what I would do when I would go to the yacht is find somebody with the cool shoes, hair that smells like campfire, right? Like something that is different than everyone else in the room. Like you've got really cool earrings. And so you grab your drink and you go and you just kind of nonchalantly stand at the table like, those are spectacular. Did you just dye your hair with campfire, or were you at a birthday party? But you make it about the person right away, which makes them feel special, and everyone else at the table also wants to talk to you.
Or makes them not feel like special because you're picking on my campfire smelling hair.
I'm just jealous because I haven't been at a campfire.
But then I can be like, I was in the woods yesterday.
at a birthday party, and I met some
Great
people.
opener.
And Greta could be like, I make these. This is my business, and that's gonna.
It just makes
Open a
you make
door.
a connection with the person and the table right away that makes you feel safe. Because you
Yeah.
didn't walk up being like, hey, who wants a business card? I mean, a funny intro is like, how many business cards have you guys collected? Because I have 5 already.
And you said something that's really important. Just go. You can go. It's okay to go to the bar first.
Yeah.
Grab a drink. So
Oh,
people often underrate
Chug it
that.
and then go out.
Well, you could do that, but you meet people at the bar too. Like, oh, what do you got? Like, have you tried this wine
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
Or,
You're
oh,
just
this
Did you
wine,
just get
yeah,
here?
exactly. Yes, pretty
Yeah.
much, right? So that in itself is
Yeah.
a key. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay,
Yeah.
just go get a drink first. Then you don't have to go join
Yeah.
a table or talk to somebody the minute that you get
You're
there.
approachable when you have something in your hand.
Drink.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's
Something to
your
hide behind.
crutch.
Yeah.
Alcoholic or not,
Yeah.
whatever.
Just stand there and drink if no one
Yeah,
cares
just
about
like,
you at all.
mm.
And then take your bow. Thank you, and leave.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we should have done this for like 3 hours because there's so much we could talk about. Let's talk about, this is my least favorite moment of networking, that like awkward exit of like gracefully being like, it's been lovely to chat with you. I'm just gonna go get a drink. And then you bump into them running, you're both running to the bar at the same time or like whatever, but you were ready to leave the conversation. And this like for me has been like a big practice over the years. So any tips? Greta, do you have?
Oh, so my most awkward like downtown after 5 like intro and outro was one scenario. This lady and I, like what Jamie said, you come up and you genuinely like are interested in someone. And so I came into downtown after 5, got my drink as per the usual, and I see this lady and she's in this like gorgeous purple dress and she's got a purple hat on, she's got a purple boots, and I'm like, I'm gonna just like open up with, what's your favorite color? Because I'm thinking this is gonna be like an easy combo starter because she's wearing all purple. So my assumption was maybe it's purple. And then I can compliment her on her beautiful dress. It was like shimmery and really pretty. And so I led with that, and she was like kind of backed up and she was like, what? And I thought, oh, this was funnier in my head.
Oh, no.
And then I think she like kind of took a minute and then said, something like yellow or something. I was like, okay. Now I can't launch into the, the joke of the fact that she's in an entire purple outfit, and I assumed it would be
Amazing.
purple.
So you muttered grimace and walked away.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's my awkward.
It's brutal.
And it was brutal. It was just like, excuse me, like, this isn't a normal question you'd ask a professional. Like, I got my brick of cards, and that's the only thing I should be talking about,
This isn't on the script.
Yeah, this is
yeah.
not the script.
This is not acceptable.
Yeah. So Bobby, you're in sales and marketing. You're pretty smooth. How do you get out of
Yeah, so you said something key, like, oh, you're going to grab a drink. So that's typically what I divert to. It's like, yeah, I thank them. Oh, Tory, it's such a pleasure to meet you and learn more about OIP. Did you already have something to drink, or did you need a refill? Like, I kind of engage them with me to go to get a drink or to go to the food table. And sure enough, when you go there, you will bump into other people and you just start striking up conversations. And sometimes you end up in a bigger group with the same person, or you each branch off. But yeah, I kind of include them in that. So yeah, my first plan of action is food and drink. Oh wow, did you need another glass of bubbly? And nobody says no. So typically they would join me and we do that. And that's kind of how I ease out of it. Or sometimes if there's somebody in the near vicinity who I might know,
Have you met?
Yes, have you met Chris? From Tourism Kelowna?
And then Bobby just like ghosts Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then sometimes
The handoff.
And sometimes, right, they start talking because they're this person that you were talking to before, and Chris would have been new to the circle. They start talking, and you can easily exit.
And then Chris gets a new volunteer out of it.
There we go.
Nice.
There we go.
Yeah.
Gotta practice.
But you know, I
the
think
handoff.
if you're not having fun, they're probably not having fun either, right?
Yeah.
And so the stronger of the two will generally come up with the best way to leave a conversation. And again, unfortunately, it generally is around food and drinks. Like, oh, my drink's empty. I'm just gonna go grab another drink, and they're like, yeah,
Oh, you
me
chug
too.
it, my drink's
Yeah, back it goes. But I mean, when you feel an energy, you're generally feeling, you're both feeling
Yeah.
an energy, unless
Yeah.
the person is completely out there, and then they're not even gonna notice your excuse anyways.
Yeah.
But it's usually reciprocal, and you're really nice, obviously. The smooth,
Oh,
like,
you're too
I mean,
kind.
if I don't like you, you're not getting a drink with me. We're not going together. We're not continuing this conversation. It has not been a pleasure, but it probably isn't a pleasure for them either. So
Yeah.
it's figuring out like a mutual way of being able to say goodbye on good terms, because you never know where you might come across each other again. But food and drink are such good excuses.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can bond over them, unbond over them.
Exactly.
Okay, we only have a couple minutes left, but there's so many things that we could talk about in relation to. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick on a couple of you for one question and a couple for the other. After you leave, any tips on post networking? What do you do with that stack of business cards?
Well, for me, you mentioned business cards earlier. So early on in my career, I kind of, in terms of setting personal goals, my thing was not how many business cards I would give out, because sometimes I only have a handful, to be truthful, but it's how many connections I can really draw on after. So that's the real gauge. So it ties into this question directly. So I would try to find, so I'm big on LinkedIn, so that's one of my advice pieces too, is start getting onto your LinkedIn, even if it's not something you're passionate about, you need a presence on there. I think especially for young people, university students getting out there. So yeah, I try to connect with them, not on Facebook, not on Instagram. I think that's awkward. If I meet you at networking event, like you, I'm nice, but like if you added me on Instagram the minute after we met at a business networking event and we really don't have that much in common, I think it's pretty weird. However, I find them on LinkedIn. I think it's safe to say you can find them on LinkedIn and send them a thank you. Hey,
Yeah.
Greta, it was so great to see you at the OIP networking event yesterday. I'd love to keep in touch. Maybe we can grab a coffee and catch up soon.
Yeah.
And then that's it, right? So you solidify the contact, and then you go from there. And if you have their email or phone number, you can put it into your phone and you just be ready to go, because that's now a new person in your arsenal of networking.
Yeah.
Do you make notes on the back of your business card?
It depends. I make mental notes because sometimes it's super awkward if you're there. So I mean,
taking
right?
notes.
No, I mean like afterwards. If you've connected with them on LinkedIn, you're like LinkedIn connection made, or just so you can
I
keep
probably
track.
put them in. That's why I add them to LinkedIn. So I keep it on my computer. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Goes into the recycle bin.
My Rolodex. I actually have a Rolodex.
Do you?
I do. Yeah, I do. I actually keep physical business cards. I have Rolodex turned into a big box. I have this large box.
yeah.
Over the years, when I'm done with the present ones, I put them into this box.
Cool.
So every time I've moved
Archived.
in the last 4 or
Wow.
5 years, I've taken this big box of physical business cards. Because you know what the funny thing is? Like, there might be one or two I might not add or might not keep in that close contact with, but years later, I'm like, oh my God, this is the person I met in Vancouver, at Vancouver Club at this XYZ charity event, and I know I have the card. So I go home, I
love that.
empty the box, and I'm looking for that one card.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I would do, just solidify the contact as soon as possible and follow up with a thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And especially like to your point, like if you're a student too, like to kind of get on the radar and be on LinkedIn. We have another session tomorrow night at 7:30, and we are gonna chat a little bit about how it's different when you're a student networking and then shifting into a career from there versus when you're already like established or have a job or are seeking a job. So any final advice on networking tips? Or specifically even on how networking is like tips in a pandemic, because we're still technically, things are a bit different. There aren't the big downtown after fives yet. And
I would say if you're trying to get into networking, like if you've not done much of it before, there are still a lot of virtual events going on. And those ones can be a lot more intimate and easier to start a conversation with because of breakout rooms and different things like that, where the conversation starts a bit easier with a few icebreaker questions and things. But in-person events are also starting to happen again. So, and right now they are smaller groups. So it's still, if you've never done the in-person either, it is a good time to get out and try that. That
and
would
your
be my
computer can
advice.
always crash if you're super.
Yes. Oh no, I can't hear you.
Yeah. The internet.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's regardless of where you are in your networking career, is to be authentic, because it's the only way to keep it up. And to remember that there's always something. There's always something
Yeah.
that you have in common with somebody. You just have to know yourself well enough to know the questions to find it. But everyone has something in common, and it's just the desire to find it and the confidence to know who you are.
I love what you said. We were meeting in Cultivation last week, and you said your advice was to be open. And I just love that it kind of like fixed in my brain. And I think that's just like a good piece of advice to give a student who's either graduating or currently working, is that just be open, because there are tons of opportunities out there, virtual, in person, there's events, there's volunteerism, there's just showing up. And you never know who you're going to meet, when you're going to meet. And yeah, I think just being open to those possibilities, that it could be a future job. It could be someone who's very connected in the community. You talked about like having a conversation with like a millionaire in Kelowna. It's very possible. And then they're very connected. So yeah, everyone has a bit of a network behind them. So if you're open to that, it can lead to cool opportunities.
Yeah, I've got two quick pieces. I would say the first thing as a young person getting out there is never judge a book by its cover, right? Because one of the things that we talked about earlier is showing up as you are. So you just never know who that person in sweatpants and a hoodie is,
Yeah.
or a jacket, right?
You know,
You
it's
might
true.
be in your business suit, or you might put a jacket on to go because that's how you dress at your job. But you just never know who is coming through that door. It could be a philanthropist or the CEO of a company that just came from his afternoon run, and that's the only 5 minutes he has to give to people in this room.
Yeah.
So he showed up. And so I've met some really influential contacts in my industry at events who weren't in suits in the past. So for me, that was really important to learn that it doesn't matter. Because typically you'd be like, you want to network with all people in suits, the people that look like, look the part, right? And the other thing is, a piece of advice that was given to me as well was what's your personal brand, and that simply is what you're passionate about, right? So you let what you're passionate about, whether it's sport or technology or tourism and hospitality or finance, you let that really drive what you want to be known for, and you put a lot of effort into bettering yourself in that area. And then, if you're coming out of university, we talked about business cards. One of the tricks to get in is, just make yourself some business cards just make yourself some business cards, like third year BCom student or fourth year BCom student. Put your phone number, put your school email on there, and you get out there and you get mixing with the people who you want to work with.
Yeah.
Right? Like you did. Like you started volunteering at the museum. So yeah, you may or may not have. One of the things we did too was create a free website on some of these free platforms when we were in final year university. So when you did get out there and you give your card out, yeah, people, who's this kid with a business card? Like that's different, right?
Yeah.
And he's got a whole website.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's like
So-
having some flair, like wearing all purple
Yeah,
or
wearing all
flair. That's an old
So,
movie,
then you
but
so you stand out for all the right reasons, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
you're the person we target in the room.
So next OYP coffee social, we'll all wear purple. But I would eventually one day like to get back to where we like have like OYP wing people groups and we like hit up downtown after 5 together. So you're like in the safety of
Yes.
like people that are in the same position as you, right? You can come back to that common table of being like, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to come tonight, but because other people were, yeah.
Chris, and then slowly back
Yes.
out.
Yeah.
I'm there for you. I got it.
And you have so many fascinating stories and things too.
Yeah.
Well, actually, all 4 of you. So big thanks for joining today and sitting here and sharing your experiences with everyone. If you see them at a networking event or in the meat department, these are approachable people. So if you want to practice your networking, these are the 4 to do it with, or myself as well. I also want to just give a huge shout out to Okanagan coLab, who is hosting us here in their awesome space today. They have a ton of great virtual things and in-person things, and there is a co-working space where you can legit just meet people. And a big thanks to Rebellious Unicorns and Dustin, who is behind the camera working his technical magic for us today. We will be back here tomorrow night at 7:30 for an Ask Me Anything on the shift from campus to career. So hopefully we will see you there, and we will be posting more information on our oypcollective.com website. Does anyone want to quickly throw out your social tags for people to follow you?
At Strategist Bobby is my personal, and at Kelowna Pride for Kelowna Pride Society at the Cove Lakeside Resort for my work.
OK coLab, no brainer one, and then Tangled Fireweed and Feathers for my jewelry line.
I am at Tourism Chris and at Tourism Kelowna is my work.
And I am at Urban Rec Okanagan or at Jamie Taverner.
And the at Tourism Chris, I'll just say, if you're looking for something to do in the Okanagan, just look at his thread and you're like, oh, I should do that next weekend because Chris just did it this weekend. Yeah.
Right here.
And at Rebellious Unicorns and unicorns.live, and you can find all the OYP stuff at OYP Collective. Thank you for tuning in and have a lovely afternoon.